Hello again and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Imperial Guard tactics video. So today's video is going to be about my first impressions of the Steel Legion doctrine. So as you guys know, I'm sort of building my way up from my mechanized guard army now, and I've decided to go with Steel Legion for sort of traditional sort of mechanized regiment. And so rather than buying all the models, building them and then painting them and then trying the list out, what I've been doing is I've bought a few models. Obviously, I already had my Steel Legion infantry, so that's keeping me busy, keeping the mech vibe going. And I bought a couple of chimeras as well in the format that I want: heavy bolter, heavy stubber. But before I go too crazy, I've started to sort of play a few games using the models I currently have and proxying them. So rather than using, so a heavy bolter, using a multi-laser heavy flamer chimera as a double heavy bolter chimera. If that makes sense. So yeah, so the list I've been running has been, well, the first list that I ran was, well, both been brigades, and the first list was a tank commander, 2 company commanders, 2 platoon commanders, a tech priest, 6 infantry squads in chimeras with heavy weapons, special weapons, 3 sentinels with multi-laser, and two Lehman Russes, a heavy weapon team with some autocannons in it, and I had exterminators, and then a unit of 20 conscripts of the Lord Commissar. So a bit of a mix. The thinking behind the conscripts was to try and use them as some like kind of first screen against the enemy. But I played against Deathwatch as my first game, and it was kill points. So Deathwatch had like 7 or 8 kill points in total, and they were all dug in cover. I mean, apart from a Corvus Blackstar with 1 squad and a captain, which came at me, did some serious damage. But I was in trouble. I mean, I had like 14 kill points something to his 7. So at the end of the game, I had reduced my opponent to about 4 models. He had a Dodero, a Lascan Dreadnought, a Watchmaster, and 2 kill team members left over. That was it. And I still had pretty much what you can see in this picture here. Pretty much, overall. So I had a lot more, as you can see. Like I had a lot more than my opponent, but it's kill points, so there you go. So I lost the mission. So I learned a lot of things from that straight away. First ever Steel Legion game, which was the whole making AP -1 weapons, ignoring AP -1 weapons and treating them as AP0 is massive. Absolutely huge. It saved my ass so much because you don't really appreciate how much firepower out there relies on AP -1. My opponent's assault cannons, all AP -1, didn't care about them. The enemy Dodero struggled all games. Even though it was strength 8, it's AP -1. Missiles AP -1, heavy bolter AP -1. Couldn't get the wounds through. My opponent's Deathwatch Marines were trying to stay in cover, so they were using using Stalker bolter ammunition. So they were range 30 inches, but AP -1. And so my opponent was really, really struggling to do some damage to me. And we actually made a huge game-changing mistake, which was he thought his frag cannons, he had 6 of them in 1 squad or something crazy. He thought his frag cannons were D6 damage each at close range, but they're not. They're just 2 damage. So he put 3 into one and 3 into another and blew up 2 Lehman Russes in one go. And he shouldn't have been able to do that. But we live and learn. That was a lesson for the Deathwatch player. He knows that now. And that's obviously, a big deal for him. But still, all I can say is it made even with that, my opponent having that sort of advantage, I was able to clear them out pretty quickly. So first thing I want to say is the AP -1 is a big, big deal. Second thing is the 18-inch range rapid fire. Holy moly. You don't really appreciate it until you realize that everyone else's rapid fire is 12-inch range. And so you sit 18 inches out of range and they're in cover. The enemy's in cover, and the enemy's got to make that decision. Do I come out of my cover and try and do more damage to you? Or do I stay in cover, but you're going to be firing way more shots at me? It was a real tactical dilemma. And a Chimera, it's got 2 lasgun arrays. Each lasgun array is rapid fire 6. At 18-inch range, that's 24 shots. It's absolutely brutal. I mean, you've got 6 of them doing that. That's 24 times 6. That's 144 shots, I think, off the top of my head. It's a lot of shots, just from the lasgun arrays. Then you've got 6 heavy bolter shots from each Chimera. So you've got another 36 heavy bolter shots, plus another 18 heavy stubber shots. It's a lot of anti-infantry, all in rapid fire range. Absolutely massive deal. So in the first game, I kept my infantry in the Chimeras pretty much the whole game, apart from when I wanted to do the get out and then mount up the next turn and get extra firepower. Yeah, it was okay. Scout Sentinels are a bit rubbish. I'm taking them to fulfill the brigade options, but I don't know if they're really doing it for me. I'm only running them as the cheapest option with multi-lasers, and it's not very good. They're good. Multi-laser Sentinels are good for Cadians, but they don't seem so good for Steel Legion. That just seems what it is. It seems to be. I might have to try and scrounge some points up and make them heavy flamers. Exterminators are bleh. Really, really unimpressed with it with Steel Legion Exterminators. I'm absolutely settled, absolutely convinced now that autocannons in the hands of Cadians is a good idea. Autocannons in the hands of anyone else is a bad idea. I'm absolutely convinced you need those rerolls on your autocannons, because otherwise it's just a waste of time. You're just struggling to hit anything. And when you do hit, you don't do that much damage. So, yeah, absolutely. Autocannons are staying at home now. Also kind of noticed it's a waste of points buying heavy weapons for my infantry squads, because most of the time they get out and then they'll be hitting on 5s, and then they'll either die or they'll fire again once at full skill and then jump back in. So you only really get like 1 or 2 turns worth of firing with them. It's not really worth it. So that's what we've learned from the first game. Kill points is always going to be tough for a guard. But I was really impressed by the resiliency. I can't really say it. The toughness. There you go. I was really impressed by the toughness of my list to withstand a lot of small arms fire. It was very, 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 very impressive. And the second game that I played was an absolute fucking nightmare. It was against one of my opponents at the club. It's this picture you can see now is one of the pictures I took. And it's my Steel Legion army, which, let's admit, is relatively fluffy. And we were going up against what I've dubbed the Uber Walker list of doom. Because they're not Poxwalkers anymore in this list, they're Uber Walkers. So my opponent's list is he's a very, very good tournament player. He only plays tournaments. It's win at all costs, but not in a horrible way. Not in a rubbish way. Just, you know what you're getting when you go up against him. And he wanted to try a game out against Tank Guard, and I was like, well, I got lots of tanks, so let's try it. So his list is 3 units of 40, or trying to think. I can see it on the picture now. It's 2 units of 35 cultists as Black Legion. No, 3 units of 35. My mistake. 3 units of 35 cultists, Black Legion, and then 1 unit of 40 cultists as Alpha Legion. The marks aren't really that important. It was just he was trying different marks out. And then he had another 10-man squad of cultists for Death Guard. And then he had a unit of Poxwalkers, a big unit, as max many as he could get 30 of them. And he surrounded the unit of Poxwalkers in cultists. So that he made a big ring with the Poxwalkers, and then on nearly all sides surrounded the unit with cultists. And then he took Fabius Bile, and he took Abaddon, and he took Typhus, and he took some sorcerers. And what he did is he rolled a dice for the Poxwalkers at the beginning, and he got +1 toughness on them. So his Poxwalkers were toughness 5 now, which is pretty deadly, pretty annoying for my heavy bolters. And then he puts a stratagem on them where it's like the dead will walk again, or the dead will rise again, where every time a model dies, friend or foe, within 7 inches of the unit of Poxwalkers, the Poxwalker unit gets another model straight away. So basically, every time a cultist dies, he automatically gets a Poxwalker. And some of you might be saying, well, why don't you shoot the Poxwalkers then? Well, that's a very good question. Because Death Guard have another stratagem, which I can't remember the name. I think it's like Cloud of Flies or something. Where you can't target them unless they're the nearest enemy unit. So you can't physically target the Poxwalkers. So the only way to really stop this list is to go first and wipe the Poxwalkers out before they get all their buffs on them. Even with a +1 to go in first, I wasn't able to, sadly. Now, you don't really appreciate the power of this list until you face it. Because in my first turn, because what my opponent also pointed out to me was, if I kill, let's say he's got 35 cultists in a unit. If I kill 30 of those cultists, then he gets 30 Poxwalkers on top of the 30 he's already got. But then he can spend 2 command points to make sure that that unit of cultists auto-passes. And then he can spend another 2 command points to bring them all back under the Tide of Traitors rule. So essentially that would mean he would have gained 30 free cultists. Because his cultists would have gone, the ones that die would have become Poxwalkers. And then he brings them all back as per Tide of Traitors. So he can very easily start growing exponentially. But then you get caught in this catch-22, which is what happened to me, which is where I was like, right, well, I'm going to wipe out your cultists then. So I wiped out 2 units. I wiped out 70 infantry in my first turn. But I didn't remove a single model from the table. Every single one of those cultists that I killed were all within 7-inch range of the Poxwalker ring, which meant he got 70 more Poxwalkers. He can then move the Poxwalkers and advance with them, and then he can put warp time on them, so they get to move again. And then he can put so I get another turn to try and shoot him, which I wasn't able to do, which I didn't obviously do much damage to them, because he puts -1 to hit on them with another spell. And then, so I managed to kill a few of them off, but then he charges my lines. No, sorry, he made a charge turn 2. That's how he does it. He made a charge turn 2, because he obviously moved forward turn 1, 4 inches plus warp time for an advanced. So we got about 8 inches. Then he warp time, so we got 12 inches. Then I murdered a load of them. He brings them all back within 3 inches of coherency, so he gains essentially another 3-inch movement, and then he moves, and then he warp times again. And then he charges. Absolute insanity. So you've got a unit of, at that point, 100 Poxwalkers, all of them toughness 5. Then he can put, is it like Death to the Traitors or something? I can't remember what it is. So he gets +1 to wound. And then there's a whole bunch of shit where he can get +2 to hit. So essentially what you have, once all the buffs have been sorted out, is you have a unit of Poxwalkers, which have, they've also got 2 attacks each as per normal. They've got +1 strength, +1 toughness from a stratagem. They're hitting on +2, so they're hitting on 3s. And they're strength 5, and they are toughness 6. And they are wounding on +1 to wound. So essentially, hitting on 3s, wounding most things on 3s, wounding infantry on 2s, -1 to hit, 5 plus save, 5 plus disgusting resilience save. And every time they kill anything, or anytime you kill anything, they get to come back. Now, if you kill the Poxwalkers, they don't get to come back. Poxwalkers can't bring back Poxwalkers. But you get the idea. So, needless to say, I lost that game. because that's the picture you can see now, and you've no idea. Like that was his turn 1. That picture just there. Oh, and he was in my Lions turn 2. Absolute insanity. I mean, I made a few mistakes, but Jesus, it was horrible. Not sure what you could do. My opponent said, you can't beat this list, you just have to go first. And I was like, oh, that's great. But even if you go first, he's got 2 units of 30 Poxwalkers, my mistake. So if you wipe out 1 unit of Poxwalkers, you can still do exactly the same thing with the second unit of Poxwalkers. So unless you have the ability to wipe out 60 Poxwalkers in 1 turn, that list is absolute insanity. Because it's not like the Poxwalkers are shit either. With all the buffs that you can burn and put on them, they're absolutely deadly. Absolutely deadly. I mean, I think if he can only, with all the command points he's burning, he can only put like, he can only do it for 2 to 3 turns. He's got like 11 command points, something crazy, but still, absolute insanity. But yeah, so that's a list to be watching out for, guys. That is an absolute list that you have to be on the lookout for because it's just insane. But I actually really enjoyed that game because it was very cinematic because my guys were just mowing. I mowed down 70 guys, and you could just imagine like the Steel Legion, disembarking, forming ranks, pouring firepower into these cultists, and like them getting chopped down. But every single time one goes down, they get back up again, stronger, faster. And the Steel Legion just continuing to reload and fire. Mounting back on chimeras, pulling back, jumping out, firing again, doing absolutely everything they can do, but just getting brought down by this unending tide of bodies. Because the problem is I actually managed to, I was able to kill him down to the original amount of starting models he had. Because even though I was killing his Poxwalkers, he then got into combat with my infantry and killed like 30 or 40 of them. And then he got 30 or 40 models back again because of his bloody 7-inch, anyone who dies, they get back up again as a Poxwalker rule. So, yeah, it was fucking horrible. It was really fucking horrible. Lesson learned, though. Lessons learned and Steel Legion things noticed. The fact that my list is able to murder quite easily 70 infantry, 70 guardsman equivalent infantry in 1 turn is a testament to its firepower. Absolute testament to its firepower. The fact that even against that absolute bullshit list of doom, I wasn't tabled. I was just surrounded and in tanks, but I wasn't tabled at any point. So that's a good thing. So the resiliency, again, absolutely fantastic. And but yeah, the rapid fire 18 is absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. So I'm really, really digging the Steel Legion. I'm really enjoying it. I may have lost 2 games, but I'm essentially starting guard from scratch at this point. I haven't used mechanized in ages, and mechanized guard plays so differently to foot guard, so differently. Your infantry are genuinely a unit to be carefully husbanded. I don't know, to be carefully deployed, and your tanks are kind of sacrificial. It's kind of the wrong way around. It's kind of weird. But yeah, there's a lot of firepower. I've also kind of learned that I don't need Dakka tanks. I've got Dakka Chimeras. I don't need Dakka Russes. So I'm going to focus my Russes on being like purely anti-tank. I'm going to have, the list is going to be changed up. So it's still the 3 Sentinels, the 6 squads of infantry, blah, blah, blah. But instead of having like the shitty conscripts and stuff, I'm going to have a tank commander and another Lehman Russ, basically. So that's what we're going to have instead. So we're going to have, the list is, in summary, going to be, when finished, 6 Chimera infantry squads with just plasma guns. Take advantage of that rapid fire. Heavy weapons aren't really useful. 3 Sentinels, 3 Lehman Russes, and a tank commander. So 6 Chimeras, 3 Sentinels, 3 Lehman Russes, and a tank commander. Yeah. So what does that come to? Like 13 vehicles, roughly? That's pretty good. 13 vehicles. I may consider switching the Scout Sentinels to Armoured Sentinels. I know Scout Sentinels can help reduce the possibility of Deep Strike, so that's why I'm keeping them in for now. But I've not yet faced Deep Strike. We'll have to see how it goes. So yeah, lessons learned, final, sort of first impressions. Steel Legion have the ability to put out an absolute insane amount of firepower, and they're really, really durable. I think that I've lost, one, because of the mission that I played, because kill points is bollocks, and two, because of the army I was playing, secondly. But thirdly, and I think the most important thing is, I've not been playing them 100% correctly. Like, first game, I didn't really use my infantry at all, and so the second game, I got them out a bit too early, and so they all died when they shouldn't have done. So, yeah, it was a bit of a gnarly one, but hey, we shall see. I'm also kind of deploying a bit of an extended line, and I feel like maybe I should just deploy in one big parking lot. But the reason I'm deploying in sort of two separate parking lots or three mini parking lots is so that if one parking lot gets charged, the other two, I don't lose all my firepower, because I'm a little paranoid about people tying my tanks up in close combat. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it's sort of given you some ideas of your own for Steel Legion. Tell me what you think about that Poxwalker of Doom list. I trust my opponent. It sounds broken and it sounds like it can't be possibly true, but it is legit. I probably am not remembering the exact format that he put the list together, and I will send him a text and ask him for the format. But yeah, it's an absolutely amazingly brutal list, really powerful. And if you were thinking of collecting it yourselves, the thing of turning over the Dark Gods, I think some really, really cool models to use would be the Anvil Industries Tox Troopers, because they look just like Nurgle cultists. And yeah, they're £18 for 10, so it's going to cost you a lot of money, but it would look really, really awesome. I don't know how Games Workshop's going to nerf it. The only way they could possibly nerf it is, say, that Poxwalk, no unit can go above its starting size. That's the only way they could nerf it, because otherwise you'd have to nerf too many things that are interacting with each other. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Tell me what you think, and of course, I'll see you guys next time.